Well, welcome back to another week of more bad news brought to you, as always, by Camel Cigarettes. Take the Camel's Challenge, smoke Camels for 30 days and see for yourself what this product can do for you. Well, my friends, it's been another week of bad news. Donald Trump is running for president, and Elon Musk is demonstrating why billionaires should not be allowed to run the world. But it's not been all bad news. Received news this week that Just Attention International has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Let me just share my screen for a moment and show you a little bit about that. This is Just Attention International. It's an organization that tries to end prison rape, sexual abuse in prisons. And it was founded in 1980 by prison rape survivor Russell Dan Smith and Barry Mehler, who served as the secretary of the group. And the group, this is the first publication, and this is it. And it was actually 1979 when we put this together. But it was organized to deal with the problems of rape and sexual assault in prisons. And it was formed from the resources of the International Committee to Free Russell Smith. There you go, Secretary Treasurer Barry Mehler, the founder of the International Committee to Free Russell Smith. The first thing I had to do was get Russell out of prison. And after that, we organized this group, which who knew? And today it's an international organization, and they were nominated last year for the Nobel Prize, but we got knocked out because of Ukraine. But we're hoping, going forward, that that we're going to get the Nobel sooner or later, and it would be a really nice way to end my career, with a little prize at the end. So I wanted to say a few things about what I have learned since I've retired. I'm now retired for 8 months. I wanted to share a few things that I've learned since then. First, you don't need hair. I used to think you need hair. You don't. There's still never enough time. I don't know where the time goes, but I am trying to get things done. And, it's like I got this week, a 700-page wonderful book. And I wanted to share a little bit with you this week from that book. We'll talk more about it later. So there's still never enough time. 3, it's a little like being a toddler. Out of sight is out of mind. When you're working, you always have appointments and your day is structured and you've got all kinds of important things that have to get done. Now, I'm basically the houseboy around here. I'm always on call. I make the coffee, I feed the animals, I take Bella for her walks, I run errands. So I got to tell you that it's a pleasure. I mean, I feel like a retired general. I've been sent home. I've been on the battlefield for long enough. Go home, enjoy the rest of your life, and I feel like at this point, I can. This is my contribution, and it's really not a contribution. It's like my journal. I've been keeping a journal all my life. I like to record my thoughts. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, this was the climactic 7 Years' War. It was the war that finally decided. This is the war between the French and the British, and finally decided the conflict. The British emerged as the global superpower of the world. The British drove the French from Canada, but they also drove the French from India, and they became the dominant power in the Atlantic and the Pacific. This change, however, was absolutely devastating for Native Americans, for the native tribes. And that's a little bit about what I wanted to talk about today was Sir Jeffrey Amherst from Amherst, Massachusetts, and Amherst College. And the campaign, first I want to talk a little bit about the Native Americans, because this was really significant. Something happened here that hadn't happened before. You have a lot of tribes. Let me just the the Chippewa, the Miami, the Ottawas, the Potawatomis, the Shawnee, the Wyandots, even the Senecas and the Onondagas, who were part of the Iroquois Confederacy, all began to absorb this religious message, a theological message that spread. And this message was that if Native peoples were going to survive, they had to realize that the British were intent on their extermination, and that the only way to resist would be to step back from the civilization that the British were offering. The native tribes had become used to using guns, European-made tools, and this famous Delaware prophet, Neil, came and said, you have to stop with the alcohol. You have to stop with the guns. You have to stop with the intercourse with the Europeans. They are going to destroy us. What we need to do is purify ourselves and resist with every ounce of power we have. This message spread among all of these other tribes. Is very unusual. And what you have then is a kind of religious revival among these tribes, all aimed at one last attempt at survival. Pontiac pointed out that to the other tribes, he went up and down the Ohio Valley and the Mississippi, and he talked to these Western tribes, and he said to them, listen, where are the Powhatan today? They no longer are on the earth. And this will be our fate as well, unless we can organize together, draw together, and drive these people out off the continent. So it's too late for that, but he did inspire and it was not coordinated. But when the revolution broke out, and Pontiac began right outside Detroit, he put together a group of actually the three fires from Michigan, the Ottawa, the Potawatomis, and the Chippewa. And he was at a council meeting with them, and he convinced them to attack the fort. They besieged the fort. They were successful. The Ojibwas went to, here in Michigan, there's Mackinac Island. There's the big fort there. Now it's a tourist attraction, but at the time it was a major fort. And the Ojibwa came, and they were going to do a lacrosse game, and everybody, they were all betting on it. All the people in the fort are, they're watching the game from above, and and the ball gets thrown over the wall, and and all the players come running into the fort to get the ball, and then they pull out their hatchets, and before you know it, they've taken over the fort. That began spontaneously. It was almost, it was not really coordinated or organized, but that began this massive war in the summer of 1763, which really displaced the British from dozens of forts along in the West. They held on to their major forts, and eventually the British were able to crush this resistance. But it was the beginning of a recognition that in order to resist, you had to step back from the attractions of modern Western capitalist production. And it reminds me a lot of the Bacon's Rebellion there too. Here, what you have is on the one side, Sir Geoffrey Amherst began a policy. He didn't really accomplish the policy, but at least he articulated this idea that that the native peoples in the West needed to be exterminated, and he started off by handing out smallpox infected blankets to try to spread disease among the native peoples. And it, I think, really clarified for at least for the native peoples that this was a war of life and death, of survival. And it reminds me a lot of the people now calling for rejection of the fossil fuel civilization, which is driving us towards extinction and extermination. It has never been really good for us, and it certainly wasn't good for the native peoples. We'll have a little more to say about this in the coming weeks. I want to have some time with this. There's always something to learn, and I will share with you some more of this extraordinary book on the 7 Years' War. We'll spend a little bit more time on it as I get a chance to organize my thoughts around the 7 Years' War. It's certainly worth spending a little time on. So that's it for this week. I will see you next week. Have a good week, and remember, take the Camels Challenge and see what camels can do for you.